Number 4, that girl accused her father's friend of raping her or pressuring her, maybe with the consent of her father, to pay his debt to them. I am in no position to confirm whether this was right or wrong, but it has been reported. If indeed that is true, then her accusation, mere accusation or claim that she has been raped, is a shubha in itself that make it far from definitive that she should be receiving the punishment for fornication. Number 5, as we indicated, the basic rules of justice in Islam allows for a person to seek the help of others to help him in defense. The question that I don't know the answer of, but if the media, which is usually distorted, is correct, then it is wrong, that she did not have access or benefit of counsel. Number 6, that there must have been or should have been more careful examination, not simply to ask the 3 men that she accused and say, all right, if they deny, they just go scot-free like that. Actually, you have medical technology today that you could still try to verify her story. So whether or not the investigation with those 3 friends of her father was too light, I think it's a matter, if true, it would be highly questionable. Number 7, Islamic law also allows for appeal. Was there a possibility of some appeal of the decision of a lower court judge who may have some knowledge of Sharia, but perhaps in view of what we said, it's not necessarily the perfect knowledge? Could there be another religious authority, another mufti, more knowledgeable person to refer to? And it is known in Islamic history, by the way, this is something that started early in jurisprudence in Islam, that they made a distinction between 2 categories of people, the judge and the mufti. The judge is the one who implements the law. The mufti is more learned scholar who codifies the law according to their understanding of Sharia, so that the judge would implement them. So there are also some possibility of going to higher authority or more knowledgeable scholar who might have given some kind of ruling on that. Maybe another question could be added, and I'm not delving into that. Is there possibility that the political climate in Nigeria and the opposition on the part of some Christians supported by the West in states in the northern part of Nigeria to implement Sharia resulted in some sort of political situation? I think if you've read Brother Harun Siddiqi's editorial, I think it's quite interesting in that. But that's an issue also that does not justify what happened, but may explain some of the political and social background for this kind of position that has been taken. A final conclusion. Comment on the attitude of media and politicians, including our own Prime Minister here. 1, every month, every single month, nearly 5,000 Iraqi children die because of lack of food and medication. That's not a normal death. It is a slow, painful, torturous death. Every single month, tens of teenagers, some as young as 8 or 10 years old, Palestinians, are shot deliberately in the head, eyes, or the heart. And every single month, hundreds of them are injured, some very seriously with disabling injuries. Same thing is happening in Kashmir under Indian occupation. The cruelty and brutality that has been documented in so many pictures, and the extent of it is just beyond imagination. You're talking about tens of thousands of murdered. The question here is this. The case of that Nigerian teenager became an issue of an international dimension in the media and among legislators. قامت الدنيا ولم تقعد. Everything went up and never settled. Human rights, so-called groups, Amnesty International, women's rights groups, feminist groups, and all of these. My question is this. Where were those groups and voices and politicians when all these cruelties has taken place and is constantly taking place on an ongoing basis? Where were these women's groups that sympathize with that poor girl. I sympathize with her, of course, no question, if you apply the rules that you spoke about. But how about Muslim women who are dismissed from their jobs, fired from their universities because they wear hijab, and are harassed even in the so-called Muslim countries like Tunisia and Turkey? Where were those freedom lovers, defenders of human rights and women's rights? Have they spoken about the rights of people to wear hijab as much as they spoke about the right of women to take off their hijab and wear virtually nothing? Where were they? Where was the government of Canada or United States or other civilized, quote-unquote, countries from the diplomatic pressure that has been applied on the Nigerian government? Where was the parallel diplomacy about the usurpation of the rights of Palestinian people and protest to the occupying force, so-called Israel, in the occupied land of Palestine, with all the cruelties and massacres they are doing? And what are those so-called big power themselves doing, especially Britain, United States, with the approval of Canada, that its successive governments considered itself like an appendix of the policy of the United States rather than an independent sovereign government? Where they have been and what are they doing to the people of Iraq, the mass killing? And they defend themselves or depict themselves as the kind, compassionate nations and people defending the right of one teenager, but forget about these rivers of blood of Muslims shed everywhere. Is that a case of double standard, or more accurately, sheer hypocrisy, that the life and blood of Muslims, tens of thousands, is not important? But when one Muslim is wronged and it suits the agenda of Islam bashing and attack Sharia and Islam and Muslim people, then that becomes a cause célèbre that takes all that attention. Our duty, in conclusion, is that we should develop our own understanding of our own deen, our own Sharia, and to approach all people, and there are a lot of people who are not Muslims, but who have a sense of fairness and honor, that perchance they may join in raising their voice with us against those double standards, against what I call the new but old, persistent, international, highly coordinated and planned to bash Islam in a new crusade. But I conclude with the note of hope from the Quran. وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. And say truth has prevailed and falsehood has vanished. Indeed, falsehood is bound to vanish sooner or later, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.